Jordan has autism. Probably. With my current knowledge in psychology, I argue it is fair to say that Jordan has autism. In fact, I am making this video to make up for what I said in my Christian video, where I made the mistake of saying that autism is something to overcome. Autism is not something to overcome, but simply to be mindful of. In this video, I will describe why Jordan has autism whilst bearing this in mind. To begin, I'll note the symptoms listed within the DSM-5, starting off with persistent deficits. Persistent deficits are lifelong challenges that people with autism experience, specifically with how they operate with other people. This includes how they communicate with others, understanding body language, and forming relationships. When applying this to Jordan, he seems to have a lower level of social communication, suggesting that he has autism. Jordan often responds like he's in a
court deposition,
where he speaks only to present information as accurately as possible. Jordan also does not disclose his special interest voluntarily. When asked what he does as a producer, he often responds with this.
I have various duties. I have various production-related tasks. It varies from day to day.
The next portion notes deficits in nonverbal behavior. This ranges from avoiding eye contact to showing no or unintended facial expressions. During Jordan's early interactions, he often avoided eye contact, but Jordan has become more comfortable with looking at people on his own volition. I am, however, more dubious about this last part. Jordan's role as a producer requires him to communicate well. Effective communication ensures
the smooth operation of the show,
so that others know what to do. But the incident with the espresso machine says otherwise. When he bought it with company money, Conan was upset that he bought it without letting others know. This indicates that Jordan must often be reminded to consider how others would respond to his actions. Jordan often states that he is reluctant to talk to people about major things like this. Jordan also states this when he talks about his fixed interests, where he often states he prefers to travel to Italy alone. This links into the next section of the diagnosis. Restrictive/repetitive patterns. This is associated with behavioral patterns, interests, or activities that are both novel and repetitive, classified by at least 2 out of these 4 prerequisites. Number 1. Repetitive movements or behaviors, such as spinning, lining up toys, repeating phrases, or using language in unique ways. Number 2. A strong need for things to stay the same, with difficulty handling changes or transitions, such as being very upset over small alterations in routine, or needing to greet people in a specific way. 3. Intense interests that are either very specific or deemed as unusual, like being overly attached to certain objects or hyperfixations on particular topics without much flexibility. Number 4. Unusual reactions to sensory experiences, such as not noticing pain or temperature changes, reacting negatively to certain sounds or textures, touching or smelling things, or even being highly fascinated by lights or movement. Now, because autism is a spectrum, Jordan does not fit into all of these. So let's look at the ones that he does fit into. With the first, Jordan does use language in unique ways. Jordan tends to correct those who incorrectly pronounce Italian words repeatedly. Jordan also repeatedly divulges into the linguistic origins of Italian words. With the second, I don't believe Jordan struggles with change, or at least to an intense degree that would warrant an autistic prerequisite. Jordan has also stated that his strength is knowing how to adapt, making it unlikely he fits this section. With the third, Jordan definitely has novel hyperfixations. There is Italy, his interest in language, his obsession with having the perfect nose hair trimmer and toilet paper, and an intense adoration for bidets. However, because he mentioned that the companies changed the products he liked and was very upset by it, this actually does fit into the previous section. And lastly, the fourth section. From my research, I don't think Jordan has any hypersensitivity to sensory stimuli, or at least anything he has publicly disclosed. If I am wrong, please feel free to correct me in the comments. Early childhood symptoms. Because there isn't a lot to go off with his childhood, as he has not disclosed that much about it, we'll just move on to clinical impairment in social, occupational, or other important areas of current functioning. Noting Jordan's interactions with Conan, he does not appear to be clinically impaired when it comes to communicating with others. The way that the other co-workers described him suggests that he does not voluntarily interact with them, which may be why he chose an office separate from everyone else. This may indicate that aside from his various duties as a producer, where he has to communicate with people, he may not know how to casually interact with others, hence why he may keep to himself. This may not be a clinical impairment, but it does suggest that if he is not currently diagnosed, this may explain why he chooses to be an introvert, as he describes it. While we are on clinical impairments, the next section notes if all these characteristics better explain an intellectual disability instead. I don't believe Jordan has any intellectual or language impairments. If anything, it's quite the opposite, given his interest in language and other subjects. Severity level. This final part is where everything we have stated is combined to conclude what level of autism someone has. With autism, there are 3 different levels organized by how much it impairs one's daily living, and how much support they need to manage this. Level 1 requires support which involves noticeable social communication challenges, difficulty maintaining conversations, and inflexibility with change that may cause frustration but can be managed with minor help. Level 2 requires substantial support and presents more obvious social deficits, limited social interactions, and repetitive behaviors that interfere with daily life, and they feel distressed with disrupted routines. Level 3 requires substantial support and involves severe communication difficulties, minimal social interaction, and extreme rigidity, making it hard to adapt or function across all areas of life without significant assistance. Linking this all back to Jordan, whilst he has notable deficits with his non-verbal behavior and has his own notable hyperfixations, I argue it is fair to say that he only has level 1 autism. Jordan does not currently exhibit any extreme deficits in his behavior, as he appears more accustomed to talking to others, given that he talks to Conan more often on his podcast. While Jordan's interactions with Conan are very funny, Jordan would benefit from an official diagnosis. That way he can better understand himself, and Conan can be more mindful that Jordan can't help but behave the way he does. Conan also needs to know that autism is not something to be overcome explicitly. In Jordan's case, it is something to celebrate, given the uniqueness he provides to Conan's enterprise. If Jordan does in fact have autism, I'm sure it won't make a difference, as I'm sure Conan will be very supportive of him, even if the banter between the two comes across the wrong way sometimes. Anyway, this was the Jordan Schlansky Psychoanalysis, Orange Chair Written Work, number 14.